Welcome back to the Deadology Podcast from Pencil Hill Studio, New Paltz, New York. I'm your host, Howard Weiner. Today is the early morning hours of April 20th, and therefore this episode of the podcast is the Grateful Dead 420 special. This is Season 2, Episode 16, and it's going to feature a dive into two amazing shows from April 20th, one in the Providence Civic Center in 1983, and one in the Philly Civic Convention Hall Auditorium in 1984. Wow, what a long name, Philly Civic Convention Hall Auditorium. They should have just called it the Philly Civic Center, and I think they would have got the point across, but pretty long name there. The reason the Grateful Dead played in that hall on that night instead of the Spectrum, I believe the Flyers had a playoff series going on, so the Spectrum was tied up. Maybe even the Philadelphia 76ers. They were pretty good in 1984 as well. So they didn't do the Spectrum that year. They played three shows, the April 19th, 20th, and 21st of 84 in the Philly Civic Convention Hall Auditorium. I was at both of these April 20th shows I've seen the Grateful Dead 152 times, and most of those shows, my heavy touring years were between 1982 and 1989, and these two April 20th shows I'd rank in my top 15 shows that I've seen of all time. Both great shows, desirable set lists, great performances, and they were amazing on the, as I was listening to them for the podcast, I was kind of more impressed than I thought I would be with just how much good material there was on these shows. So let's start with the Philly Civic Convention Hall Auditorium show from April 20th, 1984, since it's the 40th anniversary of that performance. So the Grateful Dead did play there 10 years earlier in 1974. They brought the Wall of Sound into this venue, which was a medium-sized venue, definitely smaller than the Spectrum. They played there August 4th and August 5th. Great shows that are captured on Dick's Picks Volume 31. And so I was at all three shows. In 84, went down with my friend Perry on the night before. For the first night, it was April 19th. And a great show that night, man. Once again, a lot of desirable songs. The 20th was definitely better. But going off the top of my head, they played Bertha, Music Never Stopped, China Cat Rider, Estimated Eyes, Terrapin Station. A lot of very, definitely another desirable set list to kick things off in Philly. And it was obviously a tough ticket because there was less people in there than the Spectrum. So, yeah, everybody in that place was lucky. There was such energy at all these shows. There's a Friday and Saturday and Sunday night. And so after the 19th show, me and Perry are there. No hotel room. We got a car and we got we got a guitar. We just hung out all night, sang songs, played music. We met a great Bob Dylan troubadour who came around, was jamming with us for a while. I was just doing some singing, chiming in, and we just stayed up 3, 4, 5 o'clock. Just the music kept rolling all night. Great scene there in Philly. And the next night, or I should say the next morning, Perry came up with a great idea. He's like, let's go to a hotel and take a shower. Obviously, we didn't have any reservations, but we tipped the maid, I think, $5, and we both got a few minutes in the shower, freshen up for the Saturday night, man. You want to feel good, you want to look good. And this was no ordinary Saturday night, man. We had second row seats in front of Jerry Garcia. Right there in front of Jerry, second row. So we wanted to smell good, look good, and feel good for that night. And Perry's brother and a friend, Perry's brother Stan, and a friend came down and joined us. They were with us in the second row. We had a hotel that night. We had a fresh supply of yayo and a bullet to go, so we were feeling very alert, very psyched for the show. Jerry comes out. This is Jerry in red time. He had the red shirt going, and he, just to give you the visual, Jerry was up there. This is one of his unhealthy periods. Now he's playing great guitar, and you can never tell from the guitar playing or the way the band's playing. But Jerry definitely had a little extra weight going on. Not a lot of smiling. Like, if you look at videos from the late 80s, you see Jerry smiling, interacting with the band, especially Brent Midland. But pretty much on this night, Jerry just stood there in front of the mic, barely moved, and just played his ass off, man. It was incredible. It was, it's like one of the eighth wonders of the world, watching Jerry in that state, just so locked into the music and playing so well. And great stuff from the band that night all together. And one other observation before we get into the song list here and the performances, the vocals. Jerry's voice was shot this tour, throughout the whole tour. So you're not going to catch any great vocals that you want to put in the Library of Congress or anything. But on this night, he sang very well, considering his voice was pretty shredded. And the other odd thing was Bob Weir's voice was off a tad. I think he had a cold or he was hoarse for whatever reason. This lasted because I listened to tapes from later in the tour, and the same kind of thing persisted. But the playing, unbelievable on this night. So let's jump right in. Feel Like a Stranger to open the show. And just a awesome version. A lot of great guitar work from Jerry, the band, Phil. They're all psyched to be in Philly. Just a brilliant, energy to start the show. And you could tell right away it's going to be an inspired night, because from the end of Feel Like Stranger, they didn't go into it, segue. They played Cold Rain and Snow. So you can't ask for a much better opening. Feel Like a Stranger, Cold Rain and Snow, Jerry out there singing, giving it his all. But really, there's like a working man's mentality, a grinded out feel to the way the band's playing on this night. It's just the music is so good. So you got a nice version of Cold Rain. One other interesting thing about this first set, which is very unusual, there's 9 songs, but there's no segues. They stopped after every song. Usually you get, obviously, almost every first set around this time you're getting segues, but after every song they stopped. No indecision, but they just stopped and then started another song after, a little break. So no segues here. They do Beat It Down the Line next. And then the fourth song, obviously a very desired song, Cumberland Blues. Then a good version of Cumberland. Fifth spot, Little Red Rooster. That was probably the least impressive. It wasn't a great rooster. I think Jerry lost a little love for like Rooster and Minglewood at this time. Just played it too many times or whatever, but not a great rooster. Brown Eyed Women, awesome comeback. Brother Esau in the 7th spot. Brother Esau. Just something about that's one song where I was never out in the audience saying, thank God they're playing Brother Esau. It was an ambitious song, but a rather bland musical arrangement. And it was never a song I disliked, but it was never a song I looked forward to. I was like, yes, they're playing Brother Esau or anything. So we got Brother Esau in the 7th spot. Jerry dug in, growling voice and all, and just belted out. It Must Have Been the Roses. And the set really kind of gelled, all came together in the final song, Let It Grow. And as I've mentioned here before, with Let It Grow, you can never go wrong between 77 and 1986. Just so hard to rank different versions because they were always on the money with their Let It Grow. But this one in Philly really took me by surprise. I'm sure I was totally into it at the time. But as I listened to the show 3 or 4 times in preparation for the podcast, every single jam, Garcia just nails. He puts in the extra effort. It wasn't a smooth transitions like the Alpine 82 version. They're just going from phase to phase, like in the fast lane, nothing clumpy or anything. This one's definitely not as smooth. It's rugged at points, but Jerry put in that extra effort at every turn, and there's great guitar work all the way through. So thinking about it again, I did in my book Deadology Volume 2. I rated the best Let It Grows. I don't think I put this one in there, but it probably deserves to be there because just the jamming on it is insane, and it's 12, 13 minutes. So it was definitely out of everything from this show, that kind of took me by surprise how great the Let It Grow is. It's definitely a standout. So yeah, second set, we're out there, man, in front of Jerry, man. Jerry in red. Everything's, clicking along. They open up with Scarlet Begonias, which for me, Scarlet Fire was always the best second set opener, man. It was just such an optimistic feel to Scarlet Begonias opening up. And Philadelphia was so psyched on this night. The crowd was so loud and so into it. And this Begonias, the Dead are taking it very deliberate. The 83, 84 Scarlet Fires are amazing, but it's just a very methodical, like really just taking their time with it going into this Begonias. And the between verse instrumentals is one of the best. So here's our first audio highlight of the night. Let's check it out. The Begonias from 4/20/84. There's nothing like that, man. What joy the Grateful Dead brought to Philadelphia on that night and so many nights throughout their spectacular 30-year career. It's incredible. It's the 40th anniversary. I was there in the second row for that performance, and we had a connection with a ticket agency who used to give us great prices on shows. I think we paid $40 for a second row ticket. I think Stan, Perry's brother, had some connections, and we used to get these great prices on front row, right up there seats. Also saw Worcester in the second row same year, another spectacular show. I'm just so lucky to have been part of that. If you think about ticket prices these days, $40 you can't get your car into a parking lot for $40. You know, forget about getting into a show, man. But yeah, so very, very lucky to have been there, and blessed, man, to see this show. Just great stuff. So the 1983-1984 Scarlet Fires. It's probably the best period for that combo. I mean, 77 was a great year. Obviously, it started there. 78, 79, they kind of extended it, added a verse. You got some good Scarlet Fires. But there was definitely like an uptick from the 81, 82, where they were a little shorter and succinct. You know, they were more to the point. In 83 and 84, Jerry was just lost in that world of Scarlet Fire, man. Just the deliberate approach, just savoring every nook and cranny of Scarlet Fire. So, I mean, you could hear it in these versions. He doesn't want to let go, man. He just wants to stay in that Scarlet Fire forever. And this Philly version is just beautiful, the way they go through the Scarlet, nice long outro. And the fire, like it almost comes to a stop. It's, you know, just and deliberately building into it, and the crowd clapping their hands. It's incredible. They did a version a few nights earlier in Hampton, Virginia. Not a few nights earlier. It was the first show of the tour. It was a week earlier. I was at this show as well. The crowd was really into it. A lot of echo effect. You know, it was a different kind of Scarlet Fire, not as long or as brilliant as the one from Philly, but also very exciting. So you got, as far as great Scarlet Fires from this time period, there's New Haven 423, 83. The one from Hartford, 10-14-83, I think that's my favorite. The one that's on Dick's Pigs Volume 6. They played a great one in Worcester like a week later, 10-21, 83. You got these. They played another great one in Hartford later in the year. Just so many great versions from this time period. And, you know, it was just the band dug in, but Jerry would just take his time, you know, going through it, savoring everything, extending everything. And then we get to you got the transition here, very relaxed, going into Fire. This first jam from the Fire, just mind-boggling. So this is Garcia at his best. What separates him from other guitarists, nobody's kind of in his realm or approaches the guitar the way he does. You know, most great guitarists, Clapton, Hendrix, throw out whatever name you will. You know, they want to stay hot. They want to stay in the zone, build it to a peak. But man, Jerry would just, you know, take it layer by layer. Start off nice and easy. Here's an idea. Then build on the idea. And build on it. Just like keep going and going. By the time 3-4 minutes pass by, it's the most incredible thing. And you never could have got there unless you took it layer by layer, which other guitarists never had that kind of patience. And that's what makes the Grateful Dead different from any other rock band. Or they just had this patience and ability to build something and just keep working at it. And if you let it go long enough, they would take it to a place that no other band could ever take it to, or any other great guitarist, because the other, you know, whether it's Hendrix, whoever the guitarist you want to throw out there, Jeff Beck, they're in a quicker mode to get to the point they want to get to. The Grateful Dead threw time out the window, man. Time out of mind totally. That was Jerry Garcia at his best. And this Fire in the Mountain, this first jam in the Fire, will lay out exactly what I'm talking about. It starts off like nice, it's hot, and they just build and build. By the end, you're like, how did they ever get there and hit these licks? So I like this one a lot. It's pretty similar. Well, not similar, but they take the same approach at the Hartford October 14th, 1983, where they have this long building jam, and Jerry just inexplicably gets hotter and hotter as it goes along. But let's take a listen to that, man. It's just brilliant stuff. First guitar solo, first instrumental, 420-84, Fire on the Mountain.
Fire on the mountain.
to the Rabbit Hole with Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead, man. What a night. And just the patience of Garcia just to build these jams, and also the patience that the audience developed, man. As Deadheads, we had the ability just to have the patience to enjoy the ride. And that's really why you look at some people that can't get into the Grateful Dead and they like other music, and you can't figure out exactly why. You have to have the patience and the knowledge to know where the music's going. You have to be able to take the ride, and man, boy, they would take you places if you had that patience, man. What a night in Philly! Great Fire in the Mountain. All the solos are great, but there's just something about that first one, just that step-by-step escalation, incredible. So, awesome Scarlet Fire to open. Samson and Delilah follows. Smoke inversion. All three instrumentals on the money. Bonus time on all of them. The band just smoked. And they weren't putting on any airs on this night. There was no playing around. After Samson and Delilah, they went straight into drums. Now, it's only 3 songs, Scarlet Fire, Samson. There's other shows where you would expect a little more after that, but on this, when you catch 3 songs, they're just fully played out. They give you, I think that went on for like 45 minutes, that Scarlet Fire, Samson. It's perfect. Just when no nonsense. Just here's 45 minutes of brilliant music. Boom, let's go to drums. All right, so drums, space. They come out of space with I Need a Miracle. And as I was listening to this, one of the other big takeaways from this tape, listening to it again, and that's the beauty of this podcast for me is, I know the Scarlet Fire pretty good. Like, I'll think to myself, hey, let me pull out a great Scarlet Fire. I'll pull out the one from Philly 420 or, whatever Scarlet Fire I'm looking for. But I don't often have the chance to sit down and listen to 2.5, 3 hours of continuous music and hear the shows in their entirety. But when I do a podcast, I take whatever knowledge I already have of it, and I just sit down and during that week, I'll hear it 3 or 4 times the entire show. And it was just so cool hearing this show. So I Need a Miracle. And during this time period, you would expect quick I Need a Miracles without much of an outro jam. This one, really pretty good. They actually put in some effort into an outro jam. So like in 1979, the Miracles were very hot. They did long jams out of them. But then it kind of got neutered. I Need a Miracle being an exciting song, great song. But when they went into another song, it was usually pretty quick, not much of a jam. But hey, this night in Philly, they were kind of reverted back almost to old times. They tacked on a nice little jam at the end of this I Need a Miracle. And I know as I was sitting there in the second row, I was thinking Morning Dew. You hear I Need a Miracle, and Morning Dew is the perfect answer for it. And they were just building to it with this miracle, with the outro jam. You could just get a sense, you could feel it in the crowd that they were moving towards Morning Dew. And when they hit the Morning Dew, you're like, hey, this is the holy grail tonight, man. I'm in the second row, I'm in front of Jerry, and they just went into Morning Dew. And everything is right about this. The beat, the tempo of it, awesome Morning Dew. Of course, Jerry's voice here isn't great, and he misses a couple of lyrics, but the band is just on this version. It's got that spiritual feeling, religion, and they just have Philly on their knees, man. It was incredible. And there's such a great moment. So yeah, Morning Dew's going along, nice between verse instrumental, and the ending jam's great. Just an awesome Morning Dew. What more could you ask from a show? You get a great Let It Grow, a great Scarlet Fire, and a Morning Dew. You don't even care what the other songs are. There happen to be a lot of good stuff at this show, but you can't ask for more of a show, man. So they really hit all our favorites on this night. So the Morning Dew is great here. So here we go. Fall '83. they didn't play One Morning Dew on the Northeast. That was, for me, Fall 83 was my favorite tour of all time. It lacked one thing, a Morning Dew. For some reason, there was no Morning Dews on that tour. But they made up for it. Their next Northeast tour, it started in Hampton on April 14th, 84, and the hot Morning Dew that night. Very hot Morning Dew here in Philly. And the one in Providence on April 26th. Sweet Jesus. This is the hottest, could be the hottest jam of any Morning Dew, that Indian jam. And it was the third one of the tour. I even heard people saying after the show, well, what are they going to play Morning Dew every show now? But hey, that Providence Morning Dew jam, insane. The only thing against that version is Jerry singing was awful. He could barely spit out a word at that point. It was April 26th. But you got to seek that one out. That Morning Dew jam. It's up there. It goes against like any 73, any 74. Man, I love all those great Morning Dews, but the 4/26/84 Providence is that hot with the band and what Garcia does with that final Morning Dew jam. So yeah, check that one out. But we got more to go here in Philly. Weir steps in, a little tribute to Chuck Berry, Around and Around, Johnny Be Good. Johnny Be Good's very hot. And there's such electricity on this night, man. Incredible. And then we get, for an encore, Day Job. I like Day Job, but nobody was ever too excited about a Day Job encore, but it's a pretty cool version. It's just a great night, great way to end, great ending to it. The Chuck Berry double shot there. Day Job encore. And listening to the tapes these days, I really like hearing Day Job because they didn't play it too much afterwards. So, great show. Philly Civic Center, April 20th, 84. They did another very strong show, the 21st. So I think this Philly run, this 3-night Philly run was definitely the highlight of this particular tour. And now we're going to go back a year, 4/20. 1983, Providence, Rhode Island. On the morning of April 20th, 1983, I drove to Providence by myself. I was on a mission. My first show in Providence, and I was seeking my first Eyes of the World. This was my 22nd Grateful Dead show, and I had yet to see Eyes of the World. And I'll get back to that when I get to the part where they play Eyes, but I was definitely on a mission. Incredible that I hadn't seen Eyes of the World, but yeah, hey, I was at this point where I was just crazed, in love with the Grateful Dead. When I get up to Providence that day, the first thing I had to do, I had to check with people who've seen the show in Orono, Maine the night before and see if they played Eyes of the World, and they hadn't played Eyes of the World, so it was almost obvious that it was due this night in Providence. So, hey, my whole focus, everything was centered on hearing this Eyes of the World, which would be my first one in my 22nd show. So, yeah, the Providence Civic Center, it was a very cool place to see the Grateful Dead. Some of my great memories are there. Didn't see as many shows as like the Philly Spectrum or Madison Square Garden. But this show, Great Morning Dew from 1984 that I talked about, and April 4th, 1985 in Providence, man, that first set, just probably the best first set I ever seen. So good memories from the Providence Civic Center. They open up the 420 show with Touch of Grey. And Touch of Grey, we're probably 5-6 months into Touch of Grey. Good new song. Not one person that was out there seeing the Grateful Dead could ever have imagined that this would be the hit tune that would take the Grateful Dead into a new realm of commercial popularity, man. But it was just one of the new tunes. Some people liked it better than the others. You know, I think at this time, me and most of my friends, I think West LA was our favorite of the new tunes. But we like Touch of Grey. Good Touch of Grey opener here. and Promised Land in the second spot on this night. And man, Promised Land was no joke in 83, 84, these years. Jerry really dug in. The band really kicked ass on that, the last jam of Promised Land. So this is definitely like the golden age for Promised Land. Very hot version in Providence, as hot as it gets with Promised Land. And the show continues with this great momentum. Loser is third. Jerry's singing great. The guitar solo is awesome. Minglewood in the fourth spot. And sometimes Minglewood would come up a little flat around this. They started coming up a little flat around this time. 81 and 82 are great years for Minglewood. But this version, very good. You know, Garcia definitely, there's a flow to this show. When I was there, I was totally in the moment, loving this show. And I was happily surprised listening to it on tape. It really was as good as I kind of remembered it. So the Minglewood, very good in the fourth spot. Ramble on Rose. The one thing here is Jerry's voice starts going a little, which, it's a good version, but it kind of hurt this one a little bit because he just lost his voice on this Ramble on Rose. But definitely the desirable song selections flowing. Me and My Uncle. And you might guess Big River, Mexicali Blues. No, Cumberland Blues, man. So Me and My Uncle into Cumberland. That was just being in the audience for that. You're expecting one of the other songs, which you're not going to go wrong with. But then you hear the beginning of Cumberland, and you're like, this is a blessed night, man. Just great Cumberland Blues. As I was listening to this, I think I did, well, this one is definitely better than the one from Philly Spectrum the year later. Just a great Cumberland Blues. A lot of great licks. All three solos in here. Jerry does his thing. And the momentum flows right into Looks Like Rain. Very good version. No unnecessary over-emphatic stuff from Weir. Just this one is right on the money. All good licks from Jerry at the end in the right time. Impressive Looks Like Rain. And then a great ending to the set, Cat Rider. Now, in this time period, Cat Rider was a first set ender. It was fairly common. Cat Rider was always better in the second set because they took more time with it. But this Cat Rider smokes, man. Just both the Cat and the Rider, but just not as long as you might hear it in the second set. But what more could you ask for to end the second set to a show? I mean, the first set to a show than Cat Rider. Very pleased. First set's great. I'm in a state of total anticipation, just thinking eyes, man. Just there's got to be Eyes of the World tonight. So the set opens up with freaking Brother Esau. I'm not sure about this, but this might be the only time they ever opened up a second set with Brother Esau. It's a new song, and but hey, I'm thinking, hey, the first two songs here to open this set are almost like a sound check. That's the way they came across that night, and that's the way they come across if you listen to this tape. So you got Brother Esau opening up, and then Brent does a tune. Maybe you know how I'm feeling. This is a song that was only played 6 times. I happen to like it a lot, and when I listened to this tape, and I remember being in the moment, there was like a surge to it that felt good. It just worked. It helped set up the moment as they're moving towards my first Eyes of the World. So maybe you know how I'm feeling. Played it 6 times, 5 times on this tour. So Brent thought he had something here, but they never played it again. And then until April 21st, 1986, the 6th performance, one of the most forgettable moments for any band member in Grateful Dead history. Brent just seemed to have a meltdown on stage. They played Maybe You Know How I'm Feeling, but he was just, obviously inebriated, whatever, he was doing it. It was an embarrassing moment. You could look it up, and, that's one thing. If you play with Jerry Garcia, everything you sing, everything you play is going to be immortalized forever. So Brent had one breakdown on April 21st, 86, when he played Maybe You Know How I'm Feeling before drums. He brought the song back. It just, for some reason it put him in some kind of mindset. You know, he was upset at the time, but regardless, on this night it was much brighter. It was something about that just set the stage for what was to come. So after maybe I'm feeling, they break into Bertha, and just for me it was so much joy hearing this Bertha because I knew Estimated Eyes was next. Somehow I knew that, man. There was no way it was not going to happen. But they break into this Bertha and it's just romping and stomping and smoking hot. You might ask, what is a smoking hot Bertha jam? Here it is from Providence 4/20/83. That's a hot Bertha for you, man. Just the way Jerry's picking, the burning, bubbling, quick playing there, the thunderous punctuation of the band, Phil Lesh and the band just blowing it up. That's a hot Bertha. So the energy of that just rolls right into Estimated Prophet. At this point, I'm like, it's impossible that I'm not going to see Eyes of the World. I'm just so excited that they went into Estimated. Very hot Estimated, especially the singing in the first jam of this, man. Just from where Bertha left off, the Estimated jam has that same just burning energy to it, and Weir's singing is just perfect on this night. So just a completely enjoyable Estimated, a go-to Estimated for me. I go to this Estimated Eyes a lot, man. Such a great combination on this night. So good outro jam. And the transition into Eyes, man, it was just like when they finally did it, man, it was like the transition was like they were throwing out pixie dust, man. Just like, here you go, man. Future Deadologist seeing his first Eyes of the World. Here you go, buddy. Here's your gift, Eyes of the World. It was beyond words how exciting it was. Now, just for some statistical probability on how impossible it is not to see Eyes when you've seen as many shows as I've seen. This was my 22nd show, my first 21 shows, no Eyes. I caught 3 Estimated. My first show was Estimated Uncle John's, and I ain't complaining about that, man. I ain't taking that one back because that was brilliant. So Estimated Uncle John's. My 10th show, Alpine Valley, was Estimated Drums. And then I caught an estimated He's Gone. I have it written down somewhere. I forget where the... oh, here it is. Estimated He's Gone, Madison Square Garden on September 21st. So, first off, to only catch 3 estimateds in 21 shows is tough. At this point, I was touring, but I wasn't catching every single show. This East Coast tour was the first one where I caught 11 out of 13. I caught a lot of shows. But just think of this statistical improbability of not seeing eyes in 21 shows. Even only 3 estimateds in 21 shows is rare. And I did look at song lists, and obviously in the time I knew it was happening. Every night I didn't go, they played an estimated eyes. So, but I guarantee you, anybody who's seen the Grateful Dead in the 80s, you never went 21 shows without seeing Eyes of the World. But unfortunately I did. But they made up for it all on this night in Providence, because this Eyes of the World is insane. For the 1980s definitely is a step down for Eyes of the World. We all know that the 73, 74 versions reigned supreme. 77 was spectacular for Eyes. 76, pretty underrated for Eyes, man. A lot of great versions of 76. 78, 79, they're still playing great Eyes, but it's starting to slide a little bit. The 80s come around, Eyes, it just isn't as good. With the exception of a few nights here and there where they really managed to tap into the old school spirit of it. And this is one of those nights. I'd go as far as saying I think this is my second favorite version from the 1980s, this Providence Eyes. Hey, hopefully something, I was out there, I was so excited. Just the whole energy of seeing this first Eyes, it came through. I mean, you'll hear it when I play this first solo for you. But the whole Eyes is great. The transition, and let's take a listen to this first solo, and which will kind of remind you of what Garcia did in that Fire solo, which I played earlier. Just taking like a melody, an idea, latching onto it, and building, and just when you think it's over, he finds a way to extend it. So, yeah, very cool Eyes of the World solo here from Providence.
Seasons and songs of his heart.
I was the eyes of the world on that night in Providence, man. Well worth the wait. 22 shows, but to hear an Eyes of the World like that, such a thrill, man. Definitely one of the highlights of my touring career. Excellent second solo. And to finish this version off, to make it, definitely one of the better ones from the decade. Garcia just didn't want to leave the stage. He just jams and does like a little Eyes, redux here, man. Just, wouldn't let go of the Eyes. The drummers are kind of taking over, but Jerry's just kind of noodling away, doing some extra Eyes work, going into drums. So very cool Eyes. Probably the best one ever. There might be one better. It's definitely longer. It's the one from Hartford, October 14th, 83, on the Dick's Picks, Volume 6. Yeah, it's great. That's a great Eyes of the World also. I probably have to call that one number one. A couple other cool ones from the decade that come to mind. We got Philly Spectrum 4885. That one's definitely bittersweet because Jerry's voice is totally shot, but some great jamming on it. I like the one from Ventura, July 21st, 84. Definitely a very relaxed tempo to it. There's a lot of, they played it so much, man. I think after I saw my first Eyes, I caught it every 3 shows after that. So, I definitely didn't lack any Eyes of the World after that, man. But just a memorable, was, another one of those things where you go out, you have an expectation, you want to get something out of it, and you get more than you ever could have imagined. So that's that Eyes of the World from Providence. Drum Space, and I do have to pay homage to this space because it's great. Jerry's just jamming away. It's sometimes you listen to a space and you're like, holy, this sounds like a Dark Star kind of. So it was definitely a noteworthy space. The band's just on fire here. Those first 2 songs, you pull them away from this set. This set is gold. Just everything they're doing here. So even a great space. Just Jerry's like in dreamland, just totally going off during the space. And this is one of the cool transitions ever into Throwing Stones. So Throwing Stones, a new song at this point. They'd done it into Not Fade Away a couple times, but it wasn't solid yet. It wasn't a definite thing. So it's coming out of space into Throwing Stones. And even as they break into Throwing Stones, it's about 2 minutes of jamming before they actually turn into the song and Bob sings. So I thought that was, listening to this tape again, very cool, man. Just like something you won't hear on any other tape. Real long space and a nice long intro into Throwing Stones, man. Just very unique to this show. So very good early version of Throwing Stones. And then you hit the point, like, what's next? I'm standing at the show. The band's wondering what's next. Everybody in Providence is wondering what next. Some of us are thinking Not Fade Away because we've heard that a couple times. And all of a sudden, Jerry does a little chord thing, and they're playing Morning Dew. Now, of course, we're thrilled out of our minds. I'm going nuts at this point. To me, this is the greatest show ever, blah, blah, blah. But listening to it back on the recording, just so unusual. It was like they accidentally played Morning Dew. They kind of tripped over something and fell into it. Where usually Morning Dew, you could tell there's a momentum going to the show, and they're building towards that Morning Dew. And when they crunch that opening chord, the crowd roars, and it's just like, yes, this is, it's like a perfect moment. This is so unusual because it doesn't come off like that. It's just like all of a sudden they're playing Morning Dew. It just, without the grandeur of the opening of it. But thankfully they did it, man, because there's no other song you want to hear in this place. So they go into Morning Dew. The tempo is a little quicker than usual. It's not as pure as the one from Philly a year later, or most versions you will hear. It's a little quicker. They're kind of working into it. I think the band was caught off guard. Jerry's working his way into it. But man, when they come to that jam in the middle, it's smoking. And, they keep the up-tempo going, and they go into the final jam, and Jerry's singing better and better as this goes along, and it's really resonating. And then they get to the last jam, and it starts off pretty hot. But then, like, Jerry has the good sense. It's almost too hot right away. He pulls back a little bit so he could restructure the jam and build it. And it's a very good morning. You know, they're on fire at this point. So even though it might not have been the ideal, perfect placement and time for it, they still cooked this morning dew, man. It's a great jam. You know, actually, I was kind of surprised at how good it was. It was even better than I remembered, as I was listening to it on tape several times this week. So excellent morning dew. And you know, definitely not. It's not going to rank up there with the best. It's not as good as the one from Philly the year before, but it's not too far off. So it's they really rallied to do a great morning dew, but it's definitely like an accidental morning dew. So morning dew, and this show just at this point has so much momentum. They fly into Sugar Magnolia, and they rock it out like crazy. You know, long ending jam. And then they do Sunshine Daydream. They throw a guitar jam in the middle of the Sunshine Daydream. Just undeniable. This is a great set. I think this is the show of the tour. You know, for me, it would have been up in the air between this, Binghamton. Brendan Byrne was pretty good. Actually, this tour is pretty consistent. The Spectrum shows are good at the end of the year. First time they played Brendan Byrne, Stephen Stills joined them. A lot of this is another one of these underrated tours from the mid 80s, but a lot of good shows. But I just think this show has what they did from that Bertha, Estimated Eyes, Throwing Stones, Morning Dew, Mag, just incredible. Very hot, probably maybe the best set of this tour. And so Sugar Mag obviously wraps it up. Weir says something about Don't Easing Me In, or I can't even recall what he said, but then they hop into Don't Ease Me In. Now, Don't Ease Me In to end the first set I never liked because it's taking the place of Deal or what could be a better closer. But in the encore slot, you're not getting a heavy hitter. Usually you don't get heavy hitter songs in the encore slot. This Don't Ease is smoking, man. They were just on fire that whole second set and rolls right into this Don't Ease, one of the hottest ones you'll ever hear, man. It's like when I listen on tape, yeah, I don't even remember it from the show. I was like, wow, man, they were just completely on fire, man. So, wow. They did Providence right on April 20th, 1983, and there was plenty more good shows to go in Providence. At this point, I'm just going off the top of my head. Maybe the last time they played there was 87, I think, and that was a great show. Hey, Pocky Way, Jack Straw. So, yeah, Providence Civic Center had a great history, great place in Grateful Dead history. And that wraps up our look at April 20th, man. Grateful Dead 420 special. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Howard Weiner. My website, tangledupintunes.com. All my books are there. You can find the podcast, etc. Next week, I'm going to do this 1970 show. I talked about doing it a couple weeks earlier, but had a change of heart. There's so much stuff going on in April. I wanted to get to some of these shows I love so much in April. But I want to go west, man. Go west. Fillmore West, 1970, Bill Graham, Miles Davis, and the Grateful Dead. Incredible history in that building on so many fronts, but who would you rather see but Miles Davis and the Grateful Dead? So that's what we're going to do for next week's podcast. And once again, thanks for listening. Speak to you next week. Peace out.